Welcome back to the Kyle Olson Show. Another one of my colleagues at Breitbart News and former Michigander, Rebecca Mansour, recently wrote about how the Democrats are using vote-by-mail chaos to try to win the election, and she joins me now. So, Rebecca, begin laying out what that 7-step strategy is that you say the Democrats are following.
Well, Kyle, we're seeing it in real time. First of all, we know that the pandemic rules have been very, let's just say, different for everybody. I mean, we are told that we are not allowed to have large gatherings, but we're allowed to riot essentially in the streets. We're told all of these different conflicting things, but we are definitely told that we are not safe to go to the polls. That was something that was made very clear. As early as April, there was a big push saying that people can't go to the polls. We have to have vote by mail. And the Democrats used all of the tools in their very considerable media and entertainment arsenal in order to get this message out. In fact, Andrew Breitbart liked to call it the Democrat media complex, to explain how the media works in lockstep with the interests of the Democratic Party. And I mean, you could see it right from the beginning with Hollywood. We had, these large sort of virtual get out the vote by mail galas starting as early as April with Tom Hanks and his wife meeting, and Michelle Obama and all this. So they were getting out that message really clearly that we have to have vote by mail. And this was a long time coming also because various organizations on the left, many of them funded by George Soros, have been trying to expand vote by mail for quite some time. And these organizations have also been trying to expand just access to voting, for a long time as well. And what I mean by that is they fight to extend voting rights to, everyone, including like ex-felons, you name it. And yet at the same time, they also fight any legislation that would try to clean up our voting rolls, close any loopholes in our voting system that allows for fraud. They fight that as well. Like they fight any effort for voter ID. They fight any effort, again, to clean up the voting rolls of people who are dead or no longer living in the jurisdiction where they had registered to vote, all those things. So that's the sort of framework that we have right now. And now with the vote by mail, what the part of the chaos of this is that each state has different rules, different rules on who is able to vote by mail, rules on when how they're going to send out ballots to people. So some states are just sending out ballots directly to anybody that's on their register to vote. Like, for example, in California, they just mailed us ballots, irrespective of whether the people that are registered are still alive, are still at their address. It doesn't matter. They just sent them all out. This is a very serious problem because, as I said, many people are dead. These voting rolls are not up to date, as we've seen again and again. So that's also a really big problem. Then other states are like Michigan are just sending out applications for vote by mail ballots. That's, at least a little bit safer because you have to take the initiative to respond and to apply after you get that little, application. But there's also kind of questions about who is able to send out those things. Some states, any outside group can just go to the state's website, download a form, and send out applications to vote by mail to everybody on a mailing list. And that's why we see some people getting applications to vote by mail for their dead animals. Like a couple in Georgia got an application to vote by mail, or an application to register to vote for a dead house cat that had been dead for like 10 years or something. And this happens because if any of your listeners, if they have ever given their pet's name for a mailing list or something because they didn't want junk mail in their own name, that's how this happens. So you have like stuff like that. And then you also have some states are loosening whatever safeguards they had in place for vote by mail. Like, for example, some states require signature verification on your vote by mail ballot. Some states also require an additional witness signature on that vote by mail ballot, or a notary signature. And then some states even require you to put a copy of your ID, your state ID, like your driver's license or something, within the envelope with your vote by mail ballot. So some states are very strict. Others have absolutely no guardrails. Others are just, messing with it as they go because they've never done this before. And the problem is we also don't know if our, postal service can even take all of this. This is a huge burden on the Postal Service to get all of these ballots in a timely manner. And as we were seeing these stories where ballots just go missing, ballots are dumped or ballots are not getting there in time. We saw this with the primaries. This is just a recipe for chaos. We also see that, look, the further that you get away from requiring people to vote in person, the more you expand the avenues for fraud. And that's what we're seeing. And this is real concern. And this has happened. We've seen this sort of thing happen in the past as well. I mean, there was actually the New York Post did a whole piece with an anonymous Democratic operative talking about the sort of ways that they gamed voter fraud in the past, including vote by mail fraud, where they would, steal an envelope, harvest an envelope, harvest ballots, change the ballot, reseal it, send it out, or just disappear ballots from, like, let's say a district that leans, Republican. And we're seeing stories of, like, bunches of ballots just, found someplace. I mean, there's just so many different ways that this thing can be gamed, including the fact that, look, in some states, we know now that a number of people voted twice. In Georgia, for example, in the primary election, there were over 1,000 people that voted twice. They voted by mail and then showed up and voted at the polls. Whether that was an accident or designed, who knows? We also have people getting multiple ballots at their address because for people who lived there prior to them. So it's like, this is just an opportunity to game. And then not only that, now we have the left also using the courts to try to loosen up any sort of guardrails that are already in place. Like, for example, and there's been a number of victories that they've already scored using the courts. They've extended the amount of time that you can receive these ballots. It even made it so that you don't even have to have a postmark that's visible on them. Michigan is going to have like a 2-week window practically. They're also allowing this fraud-friendly practice called ballot harvesting, where essentially somebody can go out and collect your ballot for you, helpfully, and essentially go to knock on your door and say, "Hey, let me help you fill out that ballot too." I mean, this is just total fraud-friendly, practice here. You're, harvesting ballots, literally. It's legal in California, by the way, and in a number of other third world countries where, they have bad election monitoring.
And we're just about out of time. But the last point, you have several points, and I encourage everybody to go to Breitbart.com and find this story: the 7-step strategy Democrats are using to win the election by using vote by mail chaos. But the last point, and like I said, we've only got a couple seconds, but it says the last point is, let Chief Justice John Roberts or the new justice pick the next president, or let Nancy Pelosi do it. What does that mean?
Well, this could, just like the 2000 election, remember, it went all the way up to the Supreme Court finally, because somebody had to stop the, recount in Florida. They were just trying to count as many times as they could in order to finally get a count where Al Gore won. Somebody had to stop the chaos, and it got all the way to the Supreme Court. Now, in this case, if we do not have a replacement for Justice Ginsburg, it's going to be a 4-4 court. And do we really think that John Roberts is going to stick his neck out and vote with the conservatives, in a 4-4 court? That's questionable. But then let's say that Amy Coney Barrett gets confirmed in time. It could be a 5-4 decision with Amy Coney Barrett casting that deciding vote. The left is going to lose their mind if that happens also, just FYI. But in another instance, it might just go to Nancy Pelosi, because look, if by January, if we do not have one candidate or the other having enough electoral votes, according to the Constitution, it goes to the House. In the House, each House delegation, each state gets one vote. The House then gets to vote for the president. And here's the kicker, folks. Even though the Democrats control the House, Republicans have the majority in more state delegations. Therefore, the Republicans actually could vote in Donald Trump. And I mean, the Democrats could try to game it. They could try to hold off a quorum and all that. But the Constitution is pretty clear. And so is, past voting right legislation, the Voting Right Act, that a quorum for this purpose is just one person from the state delegation. So just one lone Republican from these states delegations could show up and vote for Donald Trump.
Well, but then, of course, it's very possible that the Republicans could take back the House So then, when would that vote take place? Would it take place when there is, on January 1st, when there is still a Speaker Nancy Pelosi, or would it take place whenever the swearing in is? That remains to be seen. So, I mean, it's high stakes. It's high stakes what's going on. But unfortunately, we're out of time. Rebecca Mansour, Senior Editor at Large at Breitbart News. Thanks for joining me today.
Right on, Kyle.
Thank you so much for joining me today. For more of my work, go to Breitbart.com or find me on Twitter, Kyle Olson 4. Use the same handle for Parler, Kyle Olson 4, KYLEOLSON, and the number 4. This is the Kyle Olson Show.